All right, welcome to the Two Sons podcast. We are covering Rings of Power, episode 6 today. If you notice that Luke's face looks a little bit jacked up, it was way more jacked up on Sunday when his Murphy bed just slammed him into the ground and broke his molar and ripped his ear off of his head. Really interesting stories. You're going to want to go to our Andor episode from episode 5 of Andor that we covered. It should be just shortly back on our feed. Luke will tell that story. That was one of the wildest stories. A legit near-death experience for Luke over the weekend, which was crazy.
But I'm here.
But bear in mind his general effed up appearance is a result of about
major
500
trauma.
pounds of a frame of a Murphy bed just slamming his head into the ground.
It was only from a neck and head trauma that I experienced over the weekend.
He's only mildly affected by CTE at this point.
I just started to get really angry for no reason. Jason, are you sleeping with my wife?
So the Rings of Power episode. This one was interesting, and I'm excited to talk about it because you didn't pick up on a very specific scene. But I
was literally fresh out of a brain trauma when I watched this. So
yeah, that's true. By the way, did you have any concussion symptoms?
Actually, no. So like all jokes aside, I was just super shooken up and just kind of like generalized. It was like, I don't think I actually sustained a major head trauma. Like I didn't lose consciousness. I don't think. Like I haven't had headaches. I haven't had confusion at all. So like I've been with it.
I've had a concussion. You would know.
Yeah.
Like when you get a concussion, like you know.
Dude, I don't know. I would pay big money to see the video of me getting slammed into the ground by that Murphy bed. And I honestly think, okay, so I'm a man of faith. And I honestly think that I had like a guardian angel like doing some crazy stuff as I was getting smashed by this Murphy bed, because the fact that I walked out of that thing and didn't have a broken neck or a broken jaw is mind-boggling. And the fact that I didn't have like a head trauma, like I just got lucky.
He was holding a crowbar and a power drill while this was happening.
Like over my head, and somehow they didn't like land on me. But
gosh. Yeah, you definitely got extraordinarily lucky.
Yeah.
There was one other thing.
No concussion though.
Well, and then in general too, I wonder if like compression on the skull is not the same as like impact with the skull.
No, you're true.
Or something like that.
No, you're totally right. There's a level of jostling that occurs in your brain when you get like tackled or when you're in a car accident, and thankfully the movement of me just getting smashed into the ground apparently wasn't enough to like jostle my brain back and forth. Or if it was side to side, which, you know, I feel like is more favorable than the front to back type jostling. But yeah, like if you feel like behind your ears, like you can feel how strong your bones are.
Yeah, it makes sense.
In that area. And that's what was crushed. And that's why my ear cartilage was hanging out of my head. Because your ear skin is not all that strong, but everything underneath it is. In
general, I like when I got my concussion, I got it from an off-ball screen. Playing basketball, like I was running one way, looking the other way, and just ran into somebody going full speed, and immediately disoriented, immediately headache. Like I see. Like I had a bunch of like brief shake-up type of things earlier in my life. I was like, oh, I wonder if I had a concussion. And then when I finally got one, I'm like, oh, that's a concussion.
That's what a concussion is.
My brain is messed up.
Yeah, so thankfully I don't think I sustained like an actual brain injury. It was mostly superficial.
Yeah, Luke and I were taking our wives to San Diego this weekend, and he's going to be walking around the Gaslamp Quarter all compromised. It's going to be interesting. Get some good photos.
With my sutures. I'm going to have Elena take them out. You guys can.
You're going to take them out before we go, probably?
No. They have to be in for longer than that. But I'm trying to decide if the ER doc had like gone through the cartilage. Like, I wonder if I have just like 14 piercings of sutures, or if they're all more superficial than that. Like, I haven't been able to look, but I'm excited to like really get in there and take a look. I'm gonna like clean it off super well like later tonight and try and get all the.
I'm really glad they were able
off.
to save your ear, man.
Dude, I know it's literally black and blue.
Would you guys have still listened to the show if Luke had one ear? That's the real.
Dude, that would be really cool. One ear podcast.
Well, you have to sit over here because
And the whole entire time, what? What?
it's like, Jason, my ear hole doesn't refract the noise into my ear the way it does on the other side.
Yeah, but I'm good. I'm good.
Oh man!
Check out the Andor episode. It's a good story.
Yeah, the Andor episode will tell the full story. Yeah, be careful with your Murphy beds.
Yeah, actually, don't buy Murphy beds.
Yeah.
Just don't buy them.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I will never own a Murphy bed in my life again.
You don't need that much room for activities.
Get a nice pull-out
The
couch.
Step Brothers guys were wrong.
Yeah.
So before we get started, you guys know the drill. If you guys could please subscribe to the channel, we'd sincerely appreciate that. I also have a link in the description that will take you to all of our socials. If you guys could follow those as well. We post little clips there and things like that. We do fun things with our wives in our friend group for TikTok too, like little games and stuff like that. Rings of Power. So before we get into the nitty gritty of it, the climactic scene, when Adar pulls the old switcheroo with the axe and the sword hilt,
Yes.
and his creepy old guy devotee opens up the key that opens up a dam that releases water. Clearly, the trenches that the orcs have been digging are designed to funnel the water.
Yeah, I was wondering what those were for.
So I'm going to give you one last chance.
Oh, jeez.
So the water gets funneled in to the base of the mountain,
Yes.
falls into the lava pool,
Oh, I do remember that
and
scene.
instantly vaporizes and causes the mountain to explode in a volcano.
I see.
Where was the one volcano in Lord of the Rings?
Mount Doom.
Mount Doom.
I see.
This is so I was suspicious about this. I was talking to Luke earlier and he didn't get the Mount Doom thing.
Again, head injury. I'm over here just drilling and Jason's just talking to me about. Jason just does his best to keep our podcast going,
like,
even though I'm just incompetent.
Luke, I think what you meant to say was just TBI Luke over there.
Yeah, I'm coming back. I'm coming back strong.
But anyway, which first of all, little known fact that I learned in my deep research of the Pacific Ring of Fire after my visit to the Pacific Northwest and my volcano obsession. Typically, in many cases, what causes a volcano to explode is the magma reaching the water table beneath the surface.
Oh, so that was like legitimate science that had happened.
Yes, immediately vaporizing it and leading it to
vaporize.
But I was suspicious because we never hear of anything called the Southlands during Lord of the Rings. So it makes sense that the Southlands essentially become Mordor, where the orcs basically call their homeland and where Sauron builds his towers and things along those lines. So yeah, I'm glad you picked that up. The first legitimate large battle scene, I thought it was pretty cool.
That's cool.
The plan that Arondir had for the villagers was really smart. Trapping them in the flames and doing all of that.
And then that tower where he only had shot like one rope and then the entire tower came crashing down over the orcs. That was cool. I wonder if that was something that was set up by the elves like years and years and years prior to that, or if they had set that up just within the last few days. I feel like that had been set up a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a good question. And clearly Adar protects the large portion of his army with some sort of magic because all of that debris is falling directly on them.
Right.
And he manages to
but not only that, I mean, he had a huge army. I mean, there was lines and lines of orcs as they were climbing up that sloped area up to that stronghold.
Well, that was what was so stupid about that battle scene is like there was only like maybe 200 orcs that they killed in that village.
Yeah,
and they're all like celebrating and stuff. I'm like, this is clearly not all
right.
Of
this
what
was
you're
easy.
Dealing with.
Wow, this is easy.
My theory though ended up being correct that the two timelines about about the Numenorians coming to help. Kind of that taking place like a month prior so that they show up directly when they need them.
Right.
And we know that because it was a day's ride, although it was like a day of sailing and a day's ride from a day's sailing up the river and then a day's ride because they did say one thing that stood out to me is when they did ride, like they were full blown like charging into battle the entire way there.
Could you imagine those horses?
Yeah, the horses just
oh my gosh.
But so basically the cavalry comes in, messes everybody up. Adar pulls the old switcheroo. You actually hear him say something like, "I have one last job for you" to that guy.
Oh, right.
And then there was two other things. There's not a whole lot to get to in this episode. The Galadriel's convo with Adar. she refers to him as and I can't remember the exact. It was like Moriandir or something like that. I can't remember the exact name that he used, but I think it was more something, because that makes sense why they end up calling it Mordor.
Oh, I see. Right.
But basically, she explains that they were elves. That
they, meaning the orcs,
they became this group of elves, which was called the Moriandir or whatever it was. I'm probably butchering that, but they became the first orcs essentially. And Adar clearly has a lot of pride in his people,
right?
Because he views orc almost as like a slur.
Oh yeah,
and he was like, it's actually called Uruk. That's what we like. And it kind of makes sense because orc is almost like the rushed kind of nasty version sounding of the translation of Uruk.
That's what a foreigner would say, right?
Yeah, and like he clearly has a ton of pride in his race, so to speak. And Galadriel clearly is in favor of genocide. Like there's no like silver there's no rosy colored glasses way to look at her ideology. Like she wants to murder every last one of them. And says so directly to his face.
Actually a really interesting take, and I haven't thought about it like that. Because everyone's all for it. You bunch of weirdos, genocide weirdos. All of our viewers, kill the orcs. No, that's how I am too. It's like, get rid of the orcs; they suck.
Well, okay, but
the orcs are terrible.
I think they're trying to establish a gray area here, and I get it. But Lord of the Rings is not really much of a gray area type of. We talked
it's
about
good
this.
And evil.
It's
right?
good and evil.
Yeah. Get rid of evil.
Exactly. So in Galadriel's defense, this is not like differing cultures attacking each other.
I understand.
This is good and evil.
Exactly, and that's the true difference. Like all jokes aside, it is that's what Lord of the Rings is. That's the difference between Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones is it's just good versus evil. It's very cut and dry.
It is Star Wars-esque a little bit though, where there is, even though the Sith are evil, there is a reason behind their behavior.
Exactly.
And I genuinely believe that Adar and his people, his orcs, his Uruks, he feels like they have a purpose here, and that these are their lands, and that they're supposed to be able to live here, and all this different stuff. It does remind me of Star Wars, where you're hearing, Darth Bane explain, or Darth Sidious, this is what the galaxy needs. We need order. The galaxy's actually better when we're in charge. There's a lot of
theory.
Yeah,
there's a belief system behind how they act.
But they're also clearly evil.
They're clearly evil because they're exceedingly evil, because as soon as some of the villagers go to their side, the orcs automatically just pit them against each other, and they essentially lead them into battle knowing that they're going to get slaughtered. There's definitely still a good and a bad side, right?
Oh, absolutely. Adar clearly has history with Halbrand, to the point where Halbrand wants to. It's actually kind of cool how Galadriel stops Halbrand from killing him, and then Halbrand stops Galadriel from killing him,
right?
And then she's like, "Thanks for holding me back," and then he's like, "Thanks for doing the same for me,"
right? But
they clearly Halbrand clearly has some sort of history with Adar, presumably. He was. So this is where it gets interesting, because my original theory that Adar is Sauron, I'm not sure now.
It does not seem like that's the case. And again, our viewers probably know, but Jason are watching
Adar
this.
says, "I killed Sauron."
He does?
You don't remember that in the episode?
TBI, Jay.
Oh,
TBI.
yeah, that's right. Yes, I forgot about Luke's traumatic brain injury.
I was trying to figure out how to drink water then, because my molar was fractured, okay?
It's I got to drink like this so it hits the other side of my teeth. But yeah, he straight up tells Galadriel, "I murdered Sauron," and she calls him a liar. So I don't know where they're going with that, because Sauron's clearly still alive. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a possession thing. Maybe Sauron's spirit possessed this guy. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but the one thing that throws a big wrench in it is Halbrand's been on the run for a while. Mm-hmm. But clearly at one point he was in the Southlands, and clearly at a time when Adar was operating there.
I see.
And the orcs have been gone for a long time.
Right.
This is their big return to the foray. So something's going on there with Adar, and I am 100% intrigued and interested in finding out what it is, but there's definitely something going on there.
Did you find it was funny at the end of the episode when they're like, "Halbrand, these are your people, you're their king," and he's like, I'm king.
That was
It was like very uneventful, and everyone's like, "We have a king now."
Yeah. Long live the king of the South.
I know, and he's like,
Long
"Yes, I'm
live the
here."
king.
It could have been anybody.
Yeah, there's no doubt that that the Rings of Power has struggled a little bit towing that line of cheesy compared to the other two shows that we've been covering. But
yeah, they're both.
I'm enjoying it, but it's definitely towing that line a little bit.
I hear you. I'm for sure enjoying it, but I get that assessment for sure.
How does Galadriel survive the lava flow that's coming right at her face?
I don't know.
The end scene of the episode, like the volcano is just bearing down on them and is feet away from her when it goes black.
Dude, I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm curious.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Well, you see a preview and she's...
Oh, did you see the preview? I didn't watch it. What happens in the preview?
So she
survives, obviously.
She survives. And it's like... It looks, you know, in like California when they have their inevitable like summer forest fire, one of them,
yes.
like all jokes aside, in Arizona too, and like you see footage like inside the fire where there's like massive trees that are burning, and there's just ash everywhere and an occasional like burning ember floating through the sky, like that's what it looks like. And then she stands up and she's just covered in soot. So yeah, who knows? I don't know. I don't know how she survives it, but it looks bad.
But what'll end up happening is the orcs will probably, in pretty rapid fashion, conquer the Southlands, and I'm like, there's a lot to get to. I actually did see a brief preview where the Eminem looking guy is like spitting fire out of his mouth. I don't know if that might have been a trailer that I saw.
I don't know if I'd.
But
seen
yeah,
that yet.
I'm I kind of like that I have very little like bearing on Tolkien's kind of like worldview for this, because I feel like I'm getting exposed to something new.
Right.
And I don't know where this is going, and I'm excited to find out.
Well, and a lot of people would tell you that this isn't even Tolkien's story at this point. It's just the name right.
An interpretation of it.
Exactly, yeah.
I did think the last thing that I wanted to hit on was I really thought it was cool when Elendil was telling Isildur that like when you ride into battle with a horse, you become permanently bonded with the horse. I thought that was really, really cool.
That was really cool. Isildur is such an important character in Lord of the Rings.
He's a monumentally important character.
Like he's the dude, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because they've actually done a good job not just making the story only about him.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so that's been kind of cool to see, just from like a plot standpoint and from like a writing standpoint. It's like, yes, like we know who he is. We know he's super, super important. Right now, he's a boy, and he's growing.
Dude, that was a gnarly scene. The amount of blood that was coming out of what's-her-face's shoulder when the arrow was in it.
Oh, I know.
Like, cauterizing
it was all like, it was all clotted up.
Oh, dude, and it was like just coming out like a hose. Like, it was wild.
And from like the medical side in me, I'm just thinking about all the blood that's in her lungs at that point.
Oh my gosh,
like,
dude.
Could you imagine? So all that blood is like evacuating from the body, right? It's just being like just falling from her body, and then they seal it up, and I'm just thinking, well, that's all in her thoracic cavity now, so that's good. Enjoy the next 15 minutes. But I know, so that was pretty wild. And Lord of the Rings actually is more gruesome than I thought it was going to be. Like they're leaning into that, and it looks good though. I think it looks good.
It's a gruesome show originally, or movie originally.
True, that's right. Yeah.
The kid does end up betraying them and giving out the location of the kid directly responsible for Mount Doom. Yeah, like he will go down in history. Theo's his name?
Yeah, Theo.
Theo. When you watch Lord of the Rings, just remember Theo. Like they would not have even been able to forge the Ring of Power if it was not for Theo.
Mount Theo
ruined it all.
Yeah,
and like the old hide it under the floor trick. I'm not sure if
in a barn.
In a barn, yeah. like kind of like I can't even believe he didn't run out and bury it in the forest somewhere.
Yeah, I know.
But that's all I had.
That's all I've got too.
All right. As always, we sincerely appreciate you guys' support. We will see you next week.
Thanks a lot.